Be lifted high, be lifted high.
Hey everyone, Midweek Refuel. We are on the last chapter of the book of John, and this is more of a narrative. It's not even though there is some teaching in it, it's more of a story. So we'll read that story together, and I'll just comment as I go along. And then the next time we are together, we will start a deep dive on the book of Acts, which I'm really excited about. So, John chapter 21, verse 1. Later, Jesus appeared once again to a group of his disciples by Lake Galilee. It happened one day while Peter, Thomas the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, Jacob, John, and two other disciples were all together. Peter told them, "I'm going fishing," and they all replied, "We'll go with you." So they went out and fished through the night, but caught nothing. So you got to think this was a pretty strange time for them. Have been with Jesus every day throughout his ministry. Now he is resurrected from the dead, and they're probably trying to figure out, what do we do now? And so Peter's response to that is, "I'm going to go fishing," and others follow him in that pursuit. Verse 4. Then at dawn, Jesus was standing there on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize that it was him. He called out to them, saying, "Hey guys, did you catch any fish?" "Not a thing," they replied. Jesus shouted to them, "Throw your net over the starboard side and you'll catch some." And so they did, as he said, and they caught so many fish they couldn't even pull in the net. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved, which is John, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Peter heard him say that, he quickly wrapped his outer garment around him. And because he was athletic, he dove right into the lake to go see Jesus. The other disciples then brought the boat to shore, dragging their catch of fish. They weren't far off from land, only about 100 meters. Interesting insight into Peter and his personality. Peter was jump first to ask questions later. And in this case, he was motivated by his love for Jesus, so it wasn't a bad thing. He wanted to get to Jesus first. And when they got to shore, they noticed a charcoal fire with some roasted fish and bread. Then Jesus said, "Bring some of the fish you just caught." So Peter waded into the water and helped pull the net to shore. It was full of many large fish, exactly 153. But even with so many fish, the net was not torn. "Come, let's have some breakfast," Jesus said to them. And not one of the disciples needed to ask who it was, because everyone knew it was the Lord. So that's an interesting point, because did he look different than he did before resurrection? Seems like it, just based on their not being able to recognize him entirely through the way that he looked. But they recognized him because of the way that he was acting, which is just really interesting. Don't know that I have a great revelation on that, other than that's just very interesting. Then Jesus came close to them and served them bread and fish. This was the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after his resurrection. Okay, so now we skip to another section where it's entitled "Jesus Restores Peter." After they had breakfast, Jesus said to Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you burn with love for me more than these?" Speaking of the fish. Peter answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I have great affection for you." "Then take care of my lambs," Jesus said. Jesus repeated his question the second time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you burn with love for me?" Peter answered, "Yes, my Lord, you know that I have great affection for you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. Then Jesus asked him again, "Peter, son of Jonah, do you have great affection for me?" Peter was saddened by being asked the third time and said, "My Lord, you know everything. You know that I burn with love for you." So there's an interesting juxtaposition there, right? The first two questions for Jesus, from Jesus to Peter, were, "Do you burn with love for me?" And Peter's response was, "You know that I have great affection for you." And now it gets flipped on the third time around. Jesus says, "Do you have great affection for me?" And Peter's response is, "You know that I burn with love for you." That's interesting piece to this. If you read it in other translations, you don't see that necessarily highlighted as well as it is highlighted here. So that's just an interesting point. Jesus replied, "Then feed my lambs." Peter, listen, when you were younger, you made your own choices and you went where you pleased. But one day, when you are old, others will tie you up and escort you where you do not choose to go, and you will spread out your arms, which is probably a reference to crucifixion, because that is the way that Peter ended up dying. Jesus said this to Peter as a prophecy of what kind of death. There it is. He would die for the glory of God. And then he said, Peter, follow me. Then Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved um, was following them. So we're speaking of John. This was the disciple who sat close to Jesus at the Last Supper and asked him, Lord, who is the one who will betray you? Interesting here that John refers to him himself in the third person, but whatever. So when Peter saw him, he asked Jesus, what's going to happen to him? And here's one of the bigger teaching points of this passage. Jesus replies, if I decide to let him live until I return, what concern is that of yours? You must still keep following me. And I'll read the next part, but then I want to go back to that. So the rumor started to circulate among the believers that this disciple wasn't going to die, but Jesus never said that. He only said, if I let him live until I return, what concern of that is yours? I think the major teaching point there is that oftentimes we take more interest or responsibility in the things that happen to others. And here Jesus is giving Peter the personal responsibility message. He's saying, you are in charge of you. Don't worry about what happens with him. I'll take care of that. You worry about what happens to you. He wouldn't say, you worry. He would say, you take concern of what is in front of you. You just keep following me. So that's an important lesson, I think, for everybody, because I think sometimes we put a big emphasis on making sure that we're speaking truth into other people. And I'm not saying that's not important, but I am saying that first and foremost, the Lord would have us be responsible for the choices that we make before we help others make, give insight into what they do. So here's the conclusion. I, John, am that disciple who has written these things. There he is, the great reveal, things to testify of the truth. And we know that what I've documented is accurate. Jesus did countless things that I haven't included here. And if every one of his works were written down and described one by one, I suppose the world itself wouldn't have enough room to contain the books that would have been written, which is an incredible insight when you think about that. They only documented certain of the miracles of Jesus, excuse me, in a 3-year span. And here John really gives the impression that these things were happening all the time with Jesus. Miraculous things were happening wherever he went. And I find that incredibly encouraging because it just means that there's so much more than we've even tapped into, not just in scripture, but that we have available in our lives if we will believe him. And so there it is. There's the book of John. We went through the entire book and lots of amazing stuff. I think I've shared with you guys, I plan on reading the Gospels every day for the rest of my life. And I love excuse me, should have had some water before I started this, but yeah, I plan on reading the Gospels all the time because there's so much insight into these um, understandings of Jesus just through the stories that I think are just so valuable. So there you have it. We finished John. That's so good. And we will be on to the book of Acts, and I'm excited about that. And we'll see you again next week for that. Have a great rest of your week.
Be lifted high, be lifted high.